I went back to my grandparents' house in Venezuela a few weeks ago. I'm 32 now and work as a software engineer in Miami. I wanted to reconnect with my roots and help them out. The house looked the same. The paint was faded and the iron gate was rusty. It was quiet, just like I remembered. The tropical trees surrounded the place, swaying softly in the warm air. It felt good to be there. On the second night, I lay in bed. The darkness hung heavy around me. Suddenly, I heard a faint whistling sound. At first, I thought it was just the wind. I pulled the blanket tighter around me. The sound continued, gently waking me from my dreams. I focused on it, trying to make sense of it. It was soft, almost sweet. But it was so strange. I pushed it away, thinking it was nothing. Each time I closed my eyes, the whistling returned, nagging at me. Was it a bird? Or maybe something else? My mind raced with uncertainty. I didn't want to wake my grandparents. They were old, and I didn't want to worry them for nothing. The next night, the whistling changed. It was louder, almost like a lullaby. I listened closely as it wrapped around the walls of the house, echoing through the still night. Shadows danced outside my window, and I felt a chill creep over me. I leaned closer to the glass. I didn't see anything, but the feeling of being watched hung in the air. My chest felt tight. I couldn't shake the thought that something was wrong. I thought about asking my grandparents if they had ever heard it, but I didn't. They'd likely just brush it off. But the sound morphed again, this time into laughter. It was a child's laughter. I didn't recognize it, and it sent shivers down my spine. I sat up, heart pounding. Every night after, I heard the whistling and laughing. My hands would get clammy. I'd wrap my arms around myself, trying to find comfort. My grandparents slept soundly in the next room, oblivious. I couldn't even begin to explain what I was feeling. I wanted to confront whatever it was outside, but I was terrified. One night, just as I thought about getting up to check, I heard the laughter again. It sounded so close, right by my window. I turned to look. Nothing was there. My heart raced in my chest. I felt so utterly alone in that old house, but I wasn't alone. Then, as I lay back down, I heard the whisper. It was clear and chilling. "Come play." I froze. I wasn't sure what to do next. The shadows lingered near the window, but I felt like they were waiting for me. I wanted to ignore it and close my eyes, but curiosity gripped me. What was waiting in the darkness? I lay there, heart racing, picking apart my thoughts. Should I get up? I glanced at the clock. 2:17 a.m. My grandmother always said nothing good happened at that hour. The laughter echoed again, bright and playful, mingling with the whispers. "Come play." I could almost see the shadows forming shapes outside. I swung my legs over the side of the bed. The wooden floor creaked below me. I hesitated. Every instinct screamed at me to stay put, but an anxious urge pushed me toward the window. The soft glow of the moon illuminated the yard. I moved closer, my breath shallow. Outside, the trees swayed in a ghostly dance, their leaves rustling like whispers. There was stillness. Then suddenly, I saw it, a flicker of movement behind a thick trunk. It could have been the wind, or perhaps just a trick my mind was playing on me. I leaned in closer, squinting against the moonlight, and then I saw it again, a tiny figure darting between the trees. It was small and quick, almost like a shadow flitting away from the light. My heart skipped. I couldn't tell if I was imagining it. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice barely above a whisper, trembling in the silence. For a moment, there was nothing. Then came the laugh again, bright and airy. It echoed like it was right beside me. Chills ran down my spine. I gripped the window frame. Part of me wanted to bolt, to run back to my bed, but another part, the part that felt drawn in, urged me to call out again. "Come out," I said, louder this time, both daring and pleading. There was a rustle. I felt my stomach drop. The laughter stopped, replaced by an oppressive quiet. I leaned out a little further, searching for movement. That's when I caught a glimpse of it, a small childlike figure peeking from behind a tree. The figure was pale, with tousled hair and bright eyes that gleamed like stars.
I couldn't see much else, but it was there, watching me. Then it slipped back into the shadows. Panic surged through me, but also a strange pull. "Please," I called softly. "What do you want?" The figure reappeared, its head tilting, curiosity etched on its face. "Come play," it whispered again, clearer this time, a song carried on the wind. My heart raced. I didn't have an answer or a plan. A part of me wondered if I should run and tell my grandparents, but I didn't want to frighten them. The air thickened with tension. Suddenly, the shadows began to merge and grow darker, spilling into my room. Then everything went dark. I was engulfed. I stumbled back, dazed, feeling for the wall behind me. The whispers turned frantic and loud, swirling around me. Panic overwhelmed me. I couldn't refuse this strange call anymore, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to. Catching my breath, I knew I had to make a choice. Was I ready to step into the darkness and see what awaited me, or would I let fear silence the whisper once and for all? I took a deep breath, steadying myself against the wall. The darkness felt alive, buzzing with energy. I was surrounded, yet strangely compelled to step forward. "Maybe this is just a dream," I whispered, trying to convince myself, but it didn't feel like one. With my hands outstretched, I edged toward the open window. Then, just as suddenly as the dark had enveloped me, a flicker of light appeared from somewhere in the room. I squinted, trying to focus.
The light danced like a firefly, hovering in midair. "Come play," it was the voice again, singing softly, but it felt closer now. I was struck by fear and curiosity. What was I playing with? I took a cautious step forward, my feet barely making a sound on the floor. The light zipped away from me, leading out of the room and down the hallway. My instincts screamed to turn back, but the pull was too strong. Before I knew it, I was in the hallway, the lamp casting long shadows on the walls. My heart raced as I followed the glowing light, almost forgetting about the chilling whispers. Each step brought me further from my bed and deeper into the night. "Why do you want me?" I called out, hoping for an answer, but all I got was a lingering silence. The laughter returned, echoing off the walls, eerie yet enticing. I reached the end of the hallway, where the stairs wound down into darkness. The light descended, flickering like a candle waiting to be blown out. I hesitated again, looking back toward my room. Part of me wanted to retreat, but the other half, driven by an overwhelming curiosity, begged me to follow. Making a decision, I took the first step down. The floor felt firm beneath my feet, grounding me. Each step felt heavier, demanding focus. The whispers intensified, pulling at the edges of my mind, almost like they were trying to weave a story I couldn't yet grasp. At the bottom of the stairs, I paused. The light glowed brighter, illuminating a small door at the back of the living room, one I had never noticed before. It was old and wooden, with strange symbols etched deep into the grain. I approached cautiously, the whispers surrounding me like a fog. "Come play," it sang again, and I pushed the door open. A wave of warmth poured out, contrasting the cool air of the dark house. Inside was a room unlike anything I had seen. The walls were painted vibrant colors, and the floor was covered in a soft, mossy carpet. Toys lay scattered, stuffed animals, wooden trains, and colorful blocks, as if a child had just played and left in a hurry. But the room had a stillness to it, one that made my skin crawl. Suddenly, the laughter erupted again, this time sharper, filled with a mischievous energy. My heart pounded. I should turn back, I thought, but the words felt weak against the overwhelming curiosity flooding my thoughts. That's when I noticed it, a small figure standing in the corner, half hidden by shadows. It was the childlike creature from before, but now it looked different. Its face was twisted with excitement, and its eyes glimmered. "Ready to play?" it asked, tilting its head as if challenging me. I gulped, realizing that whatever game was about to unfold, I was already in too deep to turn back. The figure stepped forward, its small body illuminated by that strange light. I could see its mouth curl into a mischievous grin, revealing a row of tiny, sharp teeth. It felt wrong, unsettling, yet I couldn't look away.
"Playtime is the best time," it chirped, giggling. Its laugh was a mix of childlike amusement and something darker lurking underneath. "You're just in time." Time? What did it mean by that? My mind raced, caught between fear and fascination. "What do you want me to do?" I managed to stammer out, my voice barely above a whisper. The creature's eyes sparkled with delight. "There's a game to be played. Come, follow me." It gestured towards a pile of toys, its body swaying with excitement. I wanted to back away, to slam the door shut and flee, but something tied me to that spot. A strange magnetic pull kept me frozen in place. The light flickered, and for a moment I could swear I saw shadows moving around the room, as if the toys themselves were coming alive. They appeared to be watching me. My breath hitched in my throat. The creature dashed to the center of the room, where a large, colorful spinning top lay. "This one first," it squealed, spinning the top with an unexpected force. The toy whirred to life, emitting a soft hum that resonated in my chest. "You must catch it before it stops." I stood there, heart pounding, thoughts racing. The game felt wrong. There was a heaviness in the air. "What if I don't want to play?" I asked, trying to sound brave but feeling anything but. "Everyone plays," it shouted, its tone shifting. Suddenly, the shadows around me deepened, creeping closer. The laughter twisted into a low, eerie chuckle that echoed off the walls. I felt a chill run down my spine. I took a step back, instincts kicking in. "I'm not playing," I declared, but the words felt weak even to me. The laughter returned, louder and more menacing. The creature's expression shifted, joy shifting into something darker. "But you don't get to choose," it said, pointing a finger at me. "You've come too far." In that moment, the top began spinning faster, a blur of colors whirling in front of my eyes. My pulse quickened as the shadows seemed to twist and writhe, eager and hungry. I could feel them tightening around me like a noose. Desperation flooded my veins. "What is this place?" I shouted, almost pleading. But it just giggled, the sound growing shrill. "A game of time, a game of fun. You shouldn't have come." Then the spinning top toppled over. The room darkened immediately, and I felt breath against my neck, warm and taunting, whispering tales I couldn't comprehend. Before I could react, everything went dark. I blinked, finding myself in a stark white room. The toys were gone. The creature vanished. But on the wall was a mirror, showing me a reflection that looked like me, yet not quite. It grinned wider than I thought possible, and its eyes glimmered with mischief. I stumbled back, heart racing. "What did I step into?" I gasped. But all I heard was a soft whistling sound, an ominous melody echoing in the silence. Something deep inside me warned that this was just the beginning. I stood frozen in the white room, staring at my reflection.
It wore that unsettling grin, eyes dancing with glee. Each second felt like a weight pressing down on me. I wanted to scream, but the sound got caught in my throat. The whistling grew louder, blending with the pounding of my heart. I turned, searching for an exit, but the walls were smooth and featureless, trapping me in this surreal space. Had I stepped into some otherworldly realm? The thought sent chills through me. Where was the creature? Was it lurking nearby, watching me? The whistling crescendoed, each note twisting in strange ways. I closed my eyes, willing it to stop. When I opened them again, the mirror started to ripple like water. My reflection changed, morphing into actions I hadn't done. I mouthed silent words, trying to communicate with a version of me I didn't understand. Then, in a blink, the whispering grew clearer, almost familiar. "Run, run, run," it urged, and my heart raced harder at the command. I turned back to the mirror, and the gleeful face leaned closer, the grin stretching wider, teeth sharper. "What do you want?" I croaked, fear choking my voice. It didn't respond. Instead, it raised a hand, fingers curling like claws. In that moment, I felt an urge to break free, an instinct to flee, though I had no idea where to go. That's when I noticed something on the ground, a small toy key. It was ornate, glinting in the strange light. Without thinking, I lunged for it, clutching it tight. As my fingers wrapped around the cool metal, the whistling paused abruptly. The mirror became still, and my reflection regained its normal expression, confusion replacing the fear. With the key in hand, the urge to escape surged through me. I scanned the room for anything that would unlock a door or a way out, and then I saw it, a door, faintly outlined against the wall where there had been none before. My heart raced. I hesitated, glancing back at the mirror. "Is this a trap?" I asked, knowing there wouldn't be an answer.
Run, run, run. The voice echoed in my mind again, a harsh command that felt more like a warning. I took a deep breath and dashed for the door. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, drowning out the whistling as I reached for the knob. It felt strange, warm to touch, pulsing like it was alive. I turned it slowly, fear coursing through me with each creak. The door swung open, revealing a corridor bathed in shadows. I had to know what waited beyond. As I stepped through, the air chilled around me. Then everything went dark again. Panic rose. Were the shadows coming for me? I strained to hear something, anything over the island. What I know.
The grip on my wrist loosened suddenly, as if whatever had been there had decided I wasn't worth the trouble. My heart raced as I blinked in the dark, trying to calm the panic that threatened to consume me again. What was that? I whispered into the void, hoping for a reply, but silence was my only answer. Gradually, shadows shifted around me, revealing more of the corridor. I stumbled forward, hands outstretched against the rough walls for balance. The air was colder here, heavy with an unsettling stillness. My mind raced as I wondered if the thing that had touched me was still lurking nearby. I needed to move, to get away from whatever it was. As I walked, I noticed faint sounds echoing through the corridor, soft whispers intertwined with that maddening whistling. It was almost melodic but twisted, sending shivers down my spine. I couldn't quite understand the words, but the rhythm felt deliberate, almost taunting. I pushed forward, my breath quickening with every step. Then a flicker of light danced at the end of the hallway. The dim glow called to me, acting like a lighthouse in this sea of shadows. I picked up my pace, desperately grasping for that sliver of hope. As I neared the light, I heard a voice again, clearer this time. "Don't follow the whistling," it warned. The voice rang familiar, but I couldn't place it. I hesitated, struggling to decide if I should turn back or step into the light. But I had already come too far to stop now. I pushed ahead, knowing my options were limited. The light became more defined, illuminating a massive door at the end of the hall. It was just like the one from before, swirling with that same warm glow. A strange sense of déjà vu washed over me, but the whispers urged me forward. As I reached the door, I fumbled for the key in my pocket, fingers trembling. The key felt heavier here, laden with weight as if it was more than just a toy. I inserted it into the lock and turned. There was a satisfying click, but the air thickened as soon as the door creaked open. What lay beyond was unlike anything I'd imagined. A room filled with trinkets and oddities stood before me, glass jars filled with strange creatures, dusty tomes stacked high, and paintings that seemed to watch me with intent. A low humming resonated, pulsating against my eardrums. Before I could step inside, something dark whipped past my peripheral vision. I spun around, and that's when I saw it, an outline in the shadows, a figure watching me from the corridor. My breath quickened. It had the same gleeful grin as my reflection, eyes glinting with a predatory shimmer. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Instead, I slammed the door shut, heart pounding against my ribs as the reality of the situation sunk in. The figure lurked close, its whispers mingling with the whistling, tormenting me from the other side. "Let's play a game," it beckoned, voice dripping with malice. I was trapped, once again.
The door felt like a barricade against the encroaching darkness, but my pulse raced at the thought of what might come next. I could hide, but at what cost? And as the walls began to pulse around me, I knew I had to make a choice, but it felt like my time was running out. I searched for an answer, but all I could do was listen to the fading whistling and hope I wouldn't lose myself in the games they wanted me to play. Inside the room, I leaned against the door, pressing my back into its solid surface. The whispers from the figure outside dripped like honey, sweet yet nauseating. I needed a moment to gather myself. I looked around, the strange items arranged on the shelves catching my eye. Something about them seemed familiar. A glass jar, its contents swirling with unnatural colors, drew my attention. I stepped closer, peering inside. A small creature writhed, its features so distorting it felt as if it was mocking me. I recoiled,
but my curiosity was piqued. What else was hidden in this room? As I turned to scan the shelves, I felt the weight of eyes on me. The paintings, their subjects frozen in time, watched with anticipation. I shook my head, trying to brush off the sensation. It was just my imagination. But the longer I stayed, the more unsettling it became. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from the door behind me. I jumped, heart racing. "What do you want?" I shouted, voice trembling. All I received was laughter, cruel and faint, blending with the whistling. It was a sickening response, like taunting children playing a game I refused to understand. I had to find a way out. I scanned the room for another exit. To my left, an old wardrobe stood slightly ajar. I hesitated. It felt wrong, but instinct pushed me. I moved toward it, each step deliberate to avoid making noise. I pulled the door open with a creak. Inside, clothes hung in disarray, dusty and faded. At the back, I noticed a shimmering fabric. When I pulled it aside, I discovered a small, ornate door embedded in the back of the wardrobe. My heart raced with hope. This could be my escape. With shaking hands, I turned the knob. The door swung open, revealing a darkened passageway that led deeper into the unknown. I felt a chill run down my spine. It was risky, but the laughter behind me grew louder, and I knew I couldn't stay here. I stepped inside, shutting the wardrobe door silently behind me. The passage was narrow and suffocating, the air damp and stale. My heart thudded in my ears, mixing with the whispers that floated in, echoing around me. I strained to listen, but couldn't make out their words. It felt like they were pulling me into their game, wrapping around me like a heavy cloak. Then, ahead, a dim light flickered. I moved toward it, each step shrouded in uncertainty. As I approached, I noticed shapes flickering within the glow, more jars and oddities. Panic crept in, mingling with intrigue. What if the figure had followed me? Then, everything went dark.
The light ahead snapped out, plunging me into a suffocating void. I stopped, breathless, straining against the darkness that pressed in on me. "Did you think you could escape?" That same mocking voice slithered through the darkness. I felt ice settle in my stomach. Something was with me in the shadows, and it wasn't going to let me go that easily. The darkness swirled around me, thick and heavy. I forced myself to stay calm, but panic clawed at my chest. I took a step back, my hands brushing against the cold wall. I needed to move, to find that light again, but I felt paralyzed, stuck in the shadows. "Come closer," the voice coaxed. It dripped with false sweetness, a lure that sent a shiver down my spine. I wanted to scream, to run, but instead, I stood frozen, listening. Suddenly, a small flicker of light returned, just ahead. It danced like a firefly, taunting and fleeting. I stepped toward it, an instinctive pull guiding my actions. Each step made the whispers grow louder, the echoes of my own fear filling the space around me. I reached for the light, desperate to grasp whatever it might be. As I got closer, the light shifted, revealing a series of glass jars lined up on a makeshift table. Each jar contained a different creature or object, straining against the glass as if desperate for freedom. I could make out glowing eyes, twisted forms, and writhing vines, the very essence of nightmares trapped by transparent walls. My heart raced at the sight. One jar was different. The liquid inside sparkled, casting a gentle glow. I leaned in closer, squinting to see. At first, it appeared empty, but then I could see it, scraps of paper floating, written with strange symbols I couldn't decipher. I felt an urge to reach out, to touch the glass, but a sudden noise made me freeze. A scuffle behind me. I whipped around, breath caught in my throat. The figure stood at the end of the passage, backlit and shadowy. Its shape was indistinct, but I could feel its gaze burning into me, as cold as ice. "Did you find something interesting?" it taunted. The words slithered through the darkness like a snake. "What do you want?" I shouted, trying to project strength despite the tremor in my voice. "Let me go!" The figure laughed, a chilling sound that faded into the walls. "You have to play the game first. There are rules, after all." I looked back at the jars, my mind racing. The glowing one beckoned to me like a siren's call. What if its contents could help me? But was it worth the risk? Just then, the figure stepped closer, its form becoming clearer. A grotesque smile stretched across its face, and I felt an overwhelming dread settle over me. I had to act. The light was my only hope. I darted forward, reaching for the jar with the floating papers. As my fingers brushed against the glass, a wave of energy surged through me.
The whispers crescendoed into a deafening roar, drowning out my thoughts. I had triggered something. Foolish girl!
The figure screeched. You won't escape that easily. I pulled the jar from its perch, cracking the glass as I did, panic fueling my actions. The glowing energy burst forth, illuminating the passageway, and for a split second I saw my escape, a darker opening behind the figure. I bolted toward it, pressing through the chaos. The whispers shifted into screams, and I realized I was entwined in something much larger than I understood. Just before I plunged into the dark, I heard the final words of the figure echoing in my heart. This isn't over. You'll never leave. And then I was free. But at what cost? The darkness gave way so suddenly that I was momentarily blinded. I stumbled out of the passage and landed hard on a damp, grassy floor. My breath came in gasps, torn between relief and confusion. I blinked rapidly, trying to adjust to the dim twilight around me, but a chilling feeling crawled up my spine. Where was I? I turned to look back at the opening I had come through, but it was gone. Just a solid wall of stone. Panic clenched my stomach as I scrambled to my feet, scanning my new surroundings. The air smelled heavy and wet, like mildew and earth. The only sound was a distant whisper that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Stay quiet, I whispered to myself, though the words felt weak. I felt exposed, vulnerable. What had I unleashed by breaking that jar? As I took cautious steps forward, I noticed a faint light flickering ahead. It pulsed rhythmically like a heartbeat, and despite the dread swirling in my chest, I felt drawn to it again. It felt like an echo of the previous light, a connection I couldn't ignore. I moved toward it, trying to ignore the strange noise that surrounded me. With each step, the whispers seemed to morph into incoherent chatter, rising and falling like voices in an argument. I sighed, shaking my head as if to clear it of the noise. Focus, I whispered to myself. Just find the light. The source of the glow came into view, a small clearing open to the sky, branches twisting overhead like skeletal fingers. At the center sat an old wooden table with strange objects scattered across its surface. A crumbled map, an ornate compass, and scattered coins glinted in the dim light, but the glow was coming from a small stone set in a shallow bowl of water. I approached slowly, mesmerized by the interplay of light and shadow. The stone looked ordinary, but an energy buzzed in the air. It hummed in tune with the distant whispers. My fingers tingled with anticipation as I reached for it. "Don't touch that," a voice warned. I jerked back, nearly tripping over a twisted root. A figure emerged from the shadows, much smaller than the one from before, but just as menacing. It was a girl, maybe my age, with wild hair that matched the dark landscape around her. Her eyes glinted with a mix of caution and curiosity. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling.
"Someone trying to survive," she said, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "The whispers, they're not friendly." I swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" "They want something. They always want something. I think I might have made them worse." I felt the weight of my actions crashing down. The energy from the jar had stirred chaos. She nodded knowingly. "Then we have to leave, now." Before I could respond, the whispers intensified. A sudden surge of wind gusted through the clearing, rattling the branches overhead. The girl grabbed my wrist, pulling me toward the edge of the clearing. Just then, I felt it, a sharp prickling on my neck, like a warning. The shadows were moving closer. "Run!" she shouted, urgency punctuating her voice. Heart pounding, I followed her deeper into the woods, the darkness closing in around us. That was when I heard it, the odd whistling sound that seemed to echo from every direction, welcoming us into a much darker game. The girl led the way, her feet barely making a sound on the forest floor as we pushed deeper into the shadows. My heart thundered in my chest, panic coursing through my veins. "Why are they after us?" I breathlessly asked, desperate for some explanation. "They want what you brought with you. The whispers, the shadows, they feed on fear and chaos," she replied without looking back. "We have to keep moving. They sense hesitation." I glanced over my shoulder, feeling the presence of something lurking just beyond the trees, almost as if it was watching us. The whistling had transformed into a haunting melody, drawing on my nerves. What is this place? How did we even get here? "Not everyone who enters comes back. You need to trust me." There was a fierceness in her voice that compelled me to follow, despite my instincts screaming in opposition. The ground beneath us shifted as we hurried through the thick underbrush, branches tangled like fingers attempting to pull us back. The whispers grew louder, forming a cacophony that echoed around us. It felt surreal, as if the darkness was alive, wrapping tighter, pulling us deeper into its grip.
Suddenly we burst into a clearing, illuminated by a moon hanging low in the sky. In the center stood a jagged rock formation that looked almost like a shrine. "This is it. We can hide here," the girl said, urging me behind a massive boulder. We crouched in the shadows, breaths heavy, but it felt different here, as if this space held a pocket of safety. "What do we do now?" I asked, glancing at the girl. "We wait," she replied. "If we're lucky, they'll pass us by. If not," her words trailed off as she peered into the darkness. The shadows danced just outside the clearing, and I couldn't shake the unease bubbling in my stomach. The air crackled, thick with anticipation, as if the forest held its breath. That's when I heard it, the soft whistling rising again, weaving a sinister tune around us. I felt it in my bones, an invitation tinged with menace. What if it's them?
I whispered, fear spilling over. "They can't come in here easily, not while the moon shines bright," she reassured me, though her voice held a tremor. "Listen, if they find us, stick close to me. I know how to navigate the darkness. I can show you the way out." Before I could reply, a flicker of movement caught my eye. I turned just in time to see a small shadow dart behind a tree, a fleeting glimpse of something pale and childlike disappearing into the undergrowth. "Do you see that?" I pointed, heart racing. She nodded, a mixture of determination and dread on her face. "Yes, they're getting bolder. We need to be ready." The shadows thickened, whispering louder, an unintelligible chorus that melded with the whistling. It was overwhelming. I could feel them closing in like an invisible noose. "What do they want from us?" I pressed. But as I looked at her, I realized she was staring intently at the shadows, teeth gritting in concentration. They thrive on what we feel. They want us to fear them, to believe we can't escape," she said, her voice quaking slightly. "But we have to stand our ground. Whatever happens next, we have to remember, they can't touch us if we don't let them." The urgency of her words pierced through my fear, igniting a spark of resolve. "Okay," I replied, clenching my fists as I took a deep breath. "Let's do this." The shadows flickered again, and with a sudden roar, the wind surged, thrumming the leaves overhead. It felt like a storm was brewing, and I instinctively grabbed her hand, our connection anchoring me as we prepared for whatever was lurking in the darkness. Then, as suddenly as the winds rose, everything went still. The whispers quieted, a heavy pall hanging in the air. I could feel the heartbeat of the night thrumming, and it was then that the melody transformed. A lullaby, soft yet haunting, poured into the clearing, lulling and coaxing, tempting us to come outside. "Stay close," the girl urged, her grip tightening. We stepped out from behind the rocks, moving cautiously toward the whispering shadows. The light of the moon illuminated a path through the trees, a flickering glow guiding our way. I could sense something waiting for us at the other end, an unseen force pulling us deeper into the woods. "Are you ready?" the girl asked, her eyes darting as shadows writhed around us. "More than ever," I said, and we pressed forward, heartbeats racing in sync. The situation felt desperate, but there was a strange power in that unknown. Then, without warning, the shadows surged, filling the space, swirling and shifting into different forms. Whispers became a roar, and the lullaby turned twisted, echoing through the air, real and intangible. "Run!" the girl shouted, and we bolted, plunging into the chaos, racing toward that flickering light ahead, the darkness attempting to wrap around us like a shroud. I didn't know if we would find escape, or if we were running headlong into some darkness we couldn't fathom. But we charged through the whispers, chasing after the light with all our heart, together facing the unknown. As we approached the light, a burst radiated through the shadows, blindingly bright, and then everything went dark once more. When I opened my eyes, I was back in my grandparents' house, lying in my bed, the early morning sun filtering through the curtains. My heart raced. Had it all been a nightmare? The whistling echoed faintly outside, reduced to a whisper. I sat up, glancing around, unsure of what was real. The events still felt vivid, tangled in my mind, like a half-remembered dream. Going downstairs, I found my grandparents drinking coffee, unaware of the turmoil I had just faced. "Did you sleep well?" my grandmother asked, her voice soft and warm. "Yeah, just some weird dreams," I replied, unsure of how to explain. The shadows still loomed heavy in my mind, and that familiar melody lingered somewhere in the back of my thoughts, echoing in unexpected ways. I glanced out the window toward the trees, swaying gently, but today their whispering felt distant, muted,
like a faded memory. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had escaped something profound. What had happened? Had the shadows followed me back, or was it merely my mind playing tricks? I would never know. But as I moved about the house, the weight of uncertainty followed me, a reminder that some mysteries linger long after we think we've escaped their grasp. And I couldn't help but wonder if the shadows were truly gone, or if they were simply biding their time, waiting for another chance to invite me to play.